I watched the video 3 times, disbelieving. The woman who calls me daughter was hitting me. My aunt was filming, smirking. I thought I would shatter. But my grandfather, the old billionaire Arthur, watched it only once. He said one line that changed the family tree. "That is enough." From then on, every secret door in the Beaumont family flew open, and I wasn't the one left standing in the storm. My name is Eliza Ward. I am 32 years old, and I am a professional risk manager. My job at North Star Apex Holdings is to spend 40, sometimes 60 hours a week analyzing spreadsheets that predict disaster. I look for the hairline fracture in the data, the 1 in a million scenario, the human error that could bring a 9-figure portfolio to its knees. I am paid to be prudent. I am paid to be paranoid. It is a skill I learned long before I ever saw a boardroom. I live in Coldwater, Vermont. The name is accurate. The air here has a sharp, clean bite to it, even in summer. I had just moved into a house on a street lined with maples that were probably older than the state itself. It was a modest place, a gray salt box with black shutters. But it was the first piece of property I had ever owned. I bought it with my own money, saved over a decade of careful, quiet work. Not 1 cent came from my father. Not 1 cent came from the legacy that hung over my mother's side of the family. This house was mine. And because it was mine, I protected it. The day after I closed, I had a state-of-the-art security system installed. Not just alarms, I had cameras, small and discreet, covering every approach: the driveway, the front walk, the back porch, the side gate. I had a smart doorbell with a high-definition lens and a 2-way microphone. Inside, a motion-activated camera covered the foyer and the bottom of the staircase. My colleagues at North Star found it amusing. "Taking your work home, Eliza?" They'd joke. I'd just smile and say it was a good insurance discount. I never told them it wasn't about strangers. It was about family. My family, such as it is a fractured thing. My mother and I lived alone, just the two of us, until I was 15. They were good years, quiet years. Then she passed away, and I was sent to live with my father. He was, by then, newly remarried to Vivian Wardell. The coldness between Vivian and me was immediate and chemical. It wasn't loud. It was a pressurized silence, a withholding of warmth that was more chilling than any argument. I was my father's biological child, a living, breathing reminder of his first life, and she treated me like an unwelcome piece of furniture he'd inexplicably refused to put in storage. She controlled the household with a passive-aggressive grip that left no fingerprints. Then there was Camille Wardell, Vivian's cousin, a woman who had weaponized the digital age. Camille runs a family vlog. She documents her blessed life with a relentless, saccharine cheerfulness that sets my teeth on edge. Her audience adores her. They see a devoted wife and mother, a pillar of the community. I see a predator who sniffs out insecurity and monetizes it. From the moment I moved in, I became her favorite supporting character. The cold, ungrateful stepdaughter. She was always angling her phone, always recording, turning every family dinner into potential content. My refusals to participate were framed as proof of my difficult nature. The other side of my lineage is a shadow. My maternal grandfather, Arthur Beaumont. The name means nothing to most, but in certain circles, it means everything. He is a billionaire, but not the new money kind who puts his name on buildings. He is an old-world titan, a recluse living in a place called Hawthorne Springs, Montana, a compound I have never seen. He is famous only for his privacy. Our entire relationship has been conducted through brief, handwritten letters. He sends me a note on my birthday. I send one back thanking him. He has never, not once, intervened in the drama with my father and Vivian. His silence is a fortress. I was in my new kitchen, unpacking the last box of glassware on a Friday night, when my phone vibrated on the granite countertop. The screen lit up with Vivian's name, a text. My stomach tightened instantly. We did not text. We barely spoke. I wiped my hands and read it. "Eliza, I have some of your old things from the attic. I'm bringing them by tomorrow. We need to have a family talk. I'll be there around 2. I read it twice. Every word was a violation. The assumption that she could just announce her presence. The family talk was a phrase she used only when she intended to deliver a verdict or an accusation. The old things was a blatant lie, a Trojan horse to get her foot in the door. I had nothing in her attic. I had made sure of it when I left for college, packing everything I owned into 2 suitcases and never looking back. My training, my instinct, my entire 32 years of experience with these people all screamed one word: ambush. I put the phone down. My heart was hammering, a hard, unpleasant rhythm against my ribs. I walked to the security system's master panel by the door. I checked the status. All cameras active. I went into the settings. I activated full record on all devices, audio and video, for the entire property, effective immediately and running for the next 48 hours. I triple-checked the cloud storage connection. Then I opened my laptop. I pulled up a secure portal and generated an emergency access link to my entire security feed. I pasted it into an encrypted email. Maya, I wrote, a situation is developing. Please hold this. I'll call if I need you to look. I sent it. Maya Sloan has been my personal attorney for 3 years. She's a sharp, no-nonsense woman who, like me, believes in preparing for the worst-case scenario. Giving her access was like adding a digital witness. My caution wasn't baseless. It was a direct response to Camille. Just 3 days prior, she had uploaded a new video. It was a 10-minute monologue, filmed in her pristine white kitchen, about family values. She'd talked about certain people who get a leg up in life and then turn their backs on the ones who raised them. She'd sighed, brushing a perfect blonde hair from her face, and said, "It's just sad when you see someone living off a legacy they did nothing to earn, and they can't even be bothered to be grateful." She never used my name. She didn't have to. The comments section did it for her. She must mean Eliza. So cold. That's the rich stepdaughter, right? It was a calculated strike. Camille knows I'm self-sufficient. She knows I have taken nothing from my father, let alone the Beaumonts, but the narrative of the ungrateful legacy brat was too juicy for her to resist. It got her engagement, it got her sympathy, and it was. I now suspected the entire purpose of this family talk. Vivian and Camille hunted as a pair. Camille would film the confrontation, and Vivian would provide the drama. They were coming to my house to manufacture content. My fingers were cold as I picked up my phone to reply to Vivian. I kept it simple, factual, and rigid, the way I would address a hostile vendor at work. Vivian, tomorrow is not a good time, as I have told you before. My home is not open for unannounced visits. You are not to come here without a direct, confirmed invitation. Whatever you think you have of mine can be mailed or thrown away. I hit send. I felt a small, grim satisfaction. The boundary was set. The line was drawn. My phone buzzed again less than a minute later. Don't be dramatic. Eliza, it's just a box. We are family. We will see you around too. The casual override, the complete, predictable dismissal of my autonomy. She had ignored the boundary. She was coming. I looked from the phone in my hand to the small, dark lens of the camera in the corner of my foyer. The green record light was glowing, a tiny, steady beacon in the dusk. I didn't know yet, as I checked the battery levels on the front door camera, that the meeting was a trap, set by the 2 women who called me family. I didn't know that tapping the record icon had just saved my entire life. The next day, Saturday, was bright and cold. I spent the morning forcing myself into a routine, unpacking books, making coffee, and watching the clock. My phone remained silent. No cancellation from Vivian, no follow-up. Part of me, the hopeful, naive part that I keep trying to kill, thought she might actually respect the boundary, that she might not show. At 1:58 p.m., my phone chimed. Not a text. It was a notification from the smart doorbell. Motion detected on the front walk. I pulled up the feed on my phone. There they were, walking up the slate path as if they owned it. Vivian was in the lead, her face set in a mask of righteous determination. She was carrying a single, cheap-looking cloth tote bag, the old things she had supposedly found. It was practically empty, just lumpy enough to serve as a prop. Behind her shadow, was Camille, and the phone was already out. Camille was holding it up, screen facing her, lens facing forward, recording her own approach. She was narrating, her voice a syrupy performance of concern. "We're just here to make peace, guys," she was saying to her future audience. "Family is so important, and we're just hoping Eliza will finally let us in." My blood ran cold. The performance had already begun, and they were not even at the door. I took a deep, steadying breath. I was not a participant in their show. I was the risk manager, and this was my house. The doorbell chimed. I let them wait for 10 seconds, just long enough for the camera to get a clear, time-stamped shot of them both on the porch. Then, I walked to the door. I did not open it. I pressed the talk button on the smart panel in my foyer. My voice, calm and amplified, broadcast out onto the porch. "Vivian, Camille, as I told you last night, this is not a good time, and you were not invited. Please leave." Vivian's face, visible on my foyer screen, darkened. She stepped forward, blocking the camera's view of Camille, and hammered the doorbell again. "Eliza, open this door. Don't be childish. I am not going to have this discussion through a speaker." "There is no discussion to be had," I said, my voice still projected. "You are trespassing. If you don't leave, I will call the police." "You'll call the police?" Vivian shrieked, her voice pitching high enough for the microphone to catch. "On your family? I am your father's wife. Open the door." She reached out and, to my astonishment, grabbed the doorknob and tried to twist it. It was, of course, locked. This was the moment. I had to create a clean, unambiguous record. I had to show I was not hiding. I walked to the door, disengaged the deadbolt, and opened it exactly 12 inches. I stood in the gap, one foot braced against the floor, my hand firmly on the door itself. "You have 60 seconds to leave my property," I said, my voice no longer coming from a speaker, but from me. Vivian's eyes were alive with a kind of furious energy. She saw my face and smiled, a thin, cruel expression. "Oh, finally, now, we can talk." "No, we can't." Camille materialized from behind her. Her phone held high. The lens was pointed directly at my face, a black, unblinking eye. I could see myself on her screen, framed perfectly in the doorway. "Eliza, honey," Camille said, her vlogger voice dripping with false empathy. "We are just here to talk. Vivian is very hurt. We all are. We just want to understand why you're being so hateful." "I have set a boundary," I said, keeping my eyes on Vivian but fully aware of the lens. "You are ignoring it. You need to leave." "Boundary?" Vivian spat the word. "I'll give you a boundary. You are going to apologize to this family. You are going to apologize for what you said to your father, for belying him, for posting things online." "I haven't posted anything," I said. "Camille is the one doing that." "Don't you dare!" Camille snapped, her sweet voice gone. "I am trying to heal this family. You are trying to tear it apart with your lies." "And," Vivian continued, stepping closer, crowding the doorway, "you are going to give me a key to this house. Your father is worried sick. What if something happened to you? How would he get in?" It was so absurd, so brazen. I almost laughed. "Absolutely not. My father has my phone number. This is my house. Now, get off my porch." I started to close the door. That's when Vivian moved. It wasn't a punch. It was something more insidious. She lunged forward, slamming her shoulder into the door, forcing it open. The wood hit my hand, and the momentum of her body sent me stumbling back into my own foyer. "You don't close the door on me," she screamed. I regained my balance, my heart pounding, a sharp pain in my wrist where the door had jammed it. "Vivian, get out! You are assaulting me." "Assaulting you?" She laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. She was in my house. She had crossed the threshold. Camille was right behind her. her phone sweeping to capture the whole scene. "We just want to talk." "Eliza," Camille chanted, like a mantra. "Why are you being so violent?" Vivian took another step toward me. I put my hand up, palm out. "Stop. Do not touch me. Get out of my house." She looked at my hand, then at my face, and she shoved me. It was a hard, two-handed push to my chest. I staggered back, hitting the newel post at the bottom of the staircase. The wood bit into my spine. "Don't you dare raise a hand to me, you ungrateful girl!" Vivian shrieked. And it was all on film, all of it. The smart doorbell captured her bursting through the door. The foyer camera, mounted high on the wall, captured the wide-angle shot. Her lunge, her shove, my fall. The microphones recorded every word. The precise timestamps were being logged to a server in another state. I didn't shove back. I didn't scream. I looked past Vivian's contorted face to Camille, who was now fully inside, her phone held with a rock-steady grip. Her expression not one of shock or concern, but of focus. She was framing a shot. She was getting her content. "Vivian, stop," Camille said, but her voice was a whisper, and she never lowered the phone. I slid sideways, my back against the wall, and my hand went to the keypad for the security system. I pressed the panic button. I held it for 3 seconds, until it beeped. A siren began to blare, a deafening, piercing sound that filled the small foyer. Both Vivian and Camille jumped, clapping their hands over their ears. Then, a new voice, 1,000 times louder than the alarm, boomed from the security panel's speaker. "This is ARS Security. A panic alarm has been triggered at this address. We are on a live two-way channel. State your emergency." The sudden official voice shattered their performance. Vivian's face went from rage to a ghostly white. "It's a mistake," Vivian yelled over the siren. "She fell. The girl fell. She's hysterical." Camille, in the chaos, turned her phone back to me, but I heard her mutter, her voice low and greedy, not meant for the security dispatcher but captured by my microphones nonetheless. "This is amazing. This clip is going to go nuclear." "The authorities have been dispatched," the voice from the wall announced. "Please remain on the premises." The siren cut off, replaced by an agonizing silence, broken only by the distant sound of a lawnmower? No, it was a high-pitched whine. From somewhere outside, a neighbor's drone was in the air, a common sound in this hobby-filled suburb. I barely registered it. Vivian and Camille looked at each other, the reality of what just happened finally dawning on them. "You're crazy," Vivian whispered, her face pale. "You're actually crazy. You called the police on your own family." "I didn't," I said, my voice shaking slightly, but my words clear. "I called security. You assaulted me in my home, and now the police are coming. You wanted a family talk? I guess you're getting one." The Lakeshore County Patrol car arrived in less than 5 minutes. 2 officers, a man and a woman, came to the door, their faces professional and unreadable. I spoke to them on the porch, Vivian and Camille huddled by their car, already performing as the victims, talking loudly about my instability. I kept it brief. My stepmother and her cousin arrived uninvited. I asked them to leave. They refused. My stepmother forced her way into my home and shoved me. The entire event is on video, from multiple angles, including all audio. I have already sent access to my attorney. I wish to press charges. The officers took my statement. They took Vivian's and Camille's, who were weeping now, telling a story about my violent outburst and how I had lured them there. The officers separated us. One officer took my information, handed me a card with a case number, and advised me on the process for a restraining order. "The DA will look at the footage," he said, his eyes giving nothing away. After they left, I locked the deadbolt, engaged the security chain, and leaned against the door, my entire body trembling. I called Maya. "Check your email," I said. They came. "It's done." Then I drove myself to the urgent care clinic. The adrenaline was fading, and my back was aching. A doctor saw me. a kind woman who listened patiently. She noted the red mark on my chest that was already blooming into a bruise, and the abrasion on my back from the newel post. She documented it all, every word, every mark, in a file. No serious injuries, she concluded. But the medical report will reflect what I see. These are consistent with being forcibly shoved. I got home just as the sun was setting. I sat on my sofa in the gathering dark. The house silent. My phone lit up. A notification from one of my social media accounts. Camille had tagged me. I opened it. She had posted a video. It was a story, so it would disappear in 24 hours. It was heavily edited, cut down to just 15 seconds. It started with a clip from her own phone, showing me at the door, my hand up. "Stop," my voice said. Then it cut. A jagged, obvious jump, to me staggering back. It was edited to look like I had lunged at them, and my stagger was me recoiling. The audio was muted, replaced by a sad, tinkling piano song. The caption, overlaid in a white, flowing script, read, "We only came to talk, but she's just not well. Praying for my niece. It's so hard when family attacks you." I woke up on Sunday morning to the vibration of my phone. It was 7 a.m. I had not slept. I had spent the night watching the tiny glowing green light of my foyer camera, listening to the normal, quiet sounds of a house settling, and feeling the deep, aching throb in my back. It was Maya. She did not waste time on greetings. "I've reviewed the portal link," she said. Her voice was sharp, a weaponized calm. "I watched all 3 angles. They are fools. They handed us their own conviction on a silver platter, but we are going to be precise. We are going to build a fortress." The relief I felt was so profound it almost buckled my knees. I had been validated. "What do I do?" "You do exactly as I say," she instructed. "First, you are not to touch, copy, or move any of the files on that security server. You are not to access the drone footage on that SD card. You are to treat your entire house as a crime scene, and you are the custodian." This, I understood. This was risk management. "I want everything, Eliza," Maya continued, her voice rattling off a list. "Not just the video files. I want the complete, unadulterated log. I want the sensor data from the smart doorbell, showing the precise nanosecond the circuit was broken when she forced the door. I want the motion detection logs from the foyer. I want the raw audio streams, separate from the video, and the high-definition video files themselves. And most importantly, I want the system metadata that proves not one byte has been altered since the moment of recording." She instructed me to call my security provider. "Tell them your attorney requires a full forensic extraction to preserve the chain of custody." Chain of custody. It was the first time I had heard the term outside of a television procedural. Maya explained it simply. We needed an unbroken, documented trail proving that the evidence was exactly as it was recorded. We needed to be able to prove, in court, that I had not edited, clipped, or manipulated a single frame. "Camille edited her clip," Maya said, a cold anger in her voice. "We will show that ours is pure. ARS. Security has a forensic department. They will come to you. They will extract the data, and they will seal it in a new, uncorrupted drive. They will be the witness that swears to its authenticity." While I was on the phone scheduling the technician, my actual doorbell rang. I flinched. A sharp, involuntary jerk. My heart hammered. I looked at the panel. It was my neighbor, the man from 2 doors down, Gary. He was holding a small plastic case. I opened the door. He stayed on the path, keeping a respectful distance. "Hi, Eliza," he said, looking awkward. He shuffled his feet. "Listen, I don't want to get involved in whatever that was, but I was out back yesterday, calibrating the gimbal on my new drone, for stability." I just nodded, my throat tight. "Well," he continued, "it films in 4K. I had it up pretty high, maybe 200 feet, just doing a rotational test, and it was pointed this way. I heard the siren, figured it was a false alarm. But then this morning, my wife saw, Well, she saw that video that woman posted, the one with the sad piano. He held out the plastic case. Inside, a tiny micro SD card was nestled in a foam cutout. That's not what happened. Eliza, I checked my footage. My camera was high enough to see over the trees. It caught the whole thing, the wide angle, them walking up, her pushing her way in, her shoving you, the whole, uncut, 10-minute interaction. It's not my business. But that just ain't right. I took the card from him. My hand was shaking. Gary, thank you. Don't thank me, he said, giving a curt nod. Just, people should tell the truth. He walked away. I closed the door, my back against the wood. I had it, the golden witness, the unblinking eye in the sky, free of bias, impossible to refute. It was objective. It was wide angle. It was undeniable. I called Maya and told her what I had. I heard her take a sharp, satisfied breath. Good. That confirms premeditation from an unbiased third party. Do not put that card in your computer. Give it to the forensic technician. Have him add it to the chain of custody. It is now Exhibit B. Maya's strategy was a 2-track offensive. First, the civil track, she explained. We are filing for a temporary restraining order against both Vivian Wardell and Camille Wardell. This morning, it'll be on a judge's desk by noon. The standard of proof is low. We just need to show a credible threat. She laughed, a humorless sound. Have a high-definition movie of one. The second track, she said, her voice dropping, is criminal. What Vivian did was assault. What Camille did was conspiracy and aiding. I am personally assembling a digital packet for the Lakeshore County District Attorney's Office. This is not a family squabble. Eliza, that is the language they use to dismiss us. This is adult domestic violence. I am framing it as such, and I'm attaching the medical report from the urgent care clinic. I had emailed her the file earlier. It's perfect, she said. The contusion on your chest, the abrasion on your back, it corroborates the physics of the Foyer video. It completely refutes their inevitable claim that you just fell. People do not fall backward and bruise their chests. The ARS technician arrived at 2 p.m. He was all business. He wore a vest. He logged his arrival time. I handed over the drone's memory card, the internal camera, and the main drive from the security panel. He sealed each in an anti-static evidence bag, labeled it with a case number, and had me sign the transfer log. It felt like I was surrendering a part of myself, but it also felt like I was handing over a burden. By 4 p.m., Maya called again. The forensic team was fast. They've already done the preliminary analysis, she said. Eliza, it's worse than we thought, or better, for our case. What did they find? They analyzed the smart home's data logs. Your Wi-Fi network registered Camille's phone. They can see that she opened her camera app precisely 90 seconds before they rang your doorbell. She was preparing to film before you even knew they were there. I felt sick. But here is the kill shot, Maya said. The Foyer camera's microphone is extremely sensitive. They isolated the audio track. Just as Vivian stepped in front of you, just before she shoved her way in, Camille's voice was captured. It's faint, but the enhancement is perfectly clear. I waited. She says, "Move a little left, Vivian, you're blocking my light." And then, a moment later, just before the shove, Camille says, "Wait for her to talk. Good, good. Frame her in the doorway." My breath hitched. I sat down on the stairs. It wasn't just a recording of an assault. It was the recording of a film production. Camille wasn't just a witness. She was the director. Maya's paralegal had also been busy. She had compiled a 6-month history of Camille's social media. Every post that mentioned a step-niece, the long vlog post about legacy brats from 2 weeks ago, the story about ungrateful family when I had declined a dinner invitation. We have motive, Maya said, her voice like steel. She wasn't just documenting, she was hunting. She was building a narrative, and she needed a climax. She needed you to be the villain. When you wouldn't perform, she and Vivian manufactured the scene. This, I realized, was not just about my home, it was about my life. The next day, Monday, I walked into the offices of North Star Apex Holdings. I requested a private meeting with Sarah, our head of human resources. I kept my voice steady, my language clinical, the way I would brief a high-risk portfolio. "Sarah," I began, "I need to inform the company of a personal security situation. I am involved in a domestic legal issue. It involves my stepmother and her cousin. There was a physical incident at my home on Saturday, and I'm currently filing a restraining order." I did not show her the videos. I did not need to. "There is a related online harassment campaign," I continued, "and there is a possibility of escalation. I am telling you this because I need to activate our employee support protocols." Sarah was, thankfully, a professional. She did not pry. She did not get emotional. She simply listened, typed, and nodded. "Understood. Eliza, your safety is our priority. We can change your building access codes. I will have our front desk security team briefed with photographs of these individuals. If they appear on this property, they will be treated as trespassers, and the police will be called immediately. Our employee assistance program is available if you need counseling." It was a small, solid wall of corporate procedure, and in that moment, it felt safer and more reliable than any family bond I had ever known. I left the meeting feeling a cold, clean sense of purpose. The risk had been identified. The countermeasures were in place. That evening, I was home, checking the new, temporary security cameras the technician had installed. When Maya called one last time, her voice was different, not triumphant, cautious. "One last thing, Eliza," she said. "The office has confirmed receipt of our packet. The judge signed the temporary restraining order. A sheriff is on his way to serve Vivian and Camille right now." "That's good," I said. "It is," she agreed. "But now we enter the next phase. This evidence file is airtight, which means their lawyer, when they get one, will know they are going to lose badly. That is when the negotiation begins." "What negotiation?" "Reputation blackmail," Maya said flatly. "Camille's entire identity is that vlog. Vivian's entire identity is her social standing in that community. The truth, the real videos, will destroy both. They are going to realize that, and they are going to offer you a deal." I waited. "They will offer to sign anything you want. They'll apologize. They'll go away. They'll pay your legal fees, all in exchange for one thing, your silence. They will demand that you bury those videos. They'll try to buy the negatives." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "And Eliza, we need to have our answer ready. We need to decide, right now, what our price is when they ask you to trade the truth for a settlement." "What's our price?" Maya's question hung in the air long after I hung up. A price. It implied they had something I wanted. It implied there was a number, a concession, that could buy my silence. As I sat in the dark of my new, secure house, the past began to unspool, not as a flood of emotion, but as a series of cold, hard data points, as if I were analyzing a risk portfolio for a new client. The client, in this case, was my own history. I remembered being 16. My father had just married Vivian. I still had a debit card, linked to a small trust my mother had left me. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was meant for books, for a slice of pizza with friends, for the small things that let a teenager feel normal. Vivian found the card one afternoon while I was at school. She had been in my room, a violation I had no power to stop. She called me into the kitchen, holding the small blue plastic square between her thumb and forefinger, as if it were a dead insect. "Your father and I feel this is teaching you bad habits, Eliza," she said, her voice smooth and reasonable. "We're going to hold on to this for you. We'll give you an allowance, in cash. It will teach you how to save." The cash allowance was $10 a week. The debit card was never seen again. I learned later, much later, that she had used the teaching savings excuse to close the account and transfer the remaining balance, a little over $3,000, into her own household account. When I asked my father about it, he just waved his hand. Vivian knows best. Eliza, it's for your own good. I learned a lesson, but not the one she intended. I learned that in that house, my assets were not my own. I learned to hide what I earned. Camille's tactics were different, but the goal was the same: appropriation. She didn't want my money, she wanted my dignity, and she wanted to turn it into content. Family gatherings were her television studio. She was the pioneer of the hilarious prank video, long before it became a toxic genre online. I was her favorite target. One Thanksgiving, she convinced my younger step-cousin to put salt in my soda. I was 17. I took a big drink and gagged, spitting the burning liquid back into the glass. I looked up, coughing, my eyes watering, to see Camille's new digital camera pointed directly at my face, the red record light glowing. "Gotcha!" she shrieked, as the rest of the table burst into laughter. "Oh, Eliza, your face! That's a classic." That clip, my humiliated, choking reaction, became a staple. She would play it at Christmas. "Remember when?" She'd laugh. I wasn't a person in those moments. I was a prop. I was the butt of a joke that everyone else was in on. I was the cold one for not finding it funny, the spoiled one for not being a good sport. I didn't run away. I simply exited. I stopped being a participant. I worked 3 part-time jobs in my senior year of high school, hiding the cash in a shoebox under a loose floorboard in my closet. I applied for every scholarship I could find, writing essays in the school library until my fingers went numb. I got a full ride to a state university 300 miles away. The day I left for college, Vivian and my father were out. I left a note. I took my shoebox and my 2 suitcases. I never lived in that house again. My success, my job at North Star, my condo before this house, the small, stable, quiet life I had built, was mine. It was forged not just by my own effort, but by a deep, cellular refusal to ever be dependent on them again. I had built a firewall. And then there was Arthur, my grandfather, the Beaumont. He was the ghost in my family tree, a man of profound, almost mythical wealth and an equally profound absence. In all the years of Vivian's quiet financial theft and Camille's public humiliations, he had never intervened. His presence was limited to thick, cream-colored envelopes that arrived on my birthday, no matter where I lived. Inside was always a handwritten card, not a letter, a card. On my 21st, it read, "The foundation of a good life is built on what you can control. Happy birthday, A. B." On my 30th, "A new decade. Continue to build well, A. B." No advice, no warmth, just a cold, factual acknowledgement of my existence. He was a silent, distant observer. He never took sides because he never, ever stepped onto the field. Until Tuesday. The sheriff had served the restraining orders on Monday night. I had received the email confirmation. Vivian and Camille were now legally required to stay 100 yards away from me, my home, and my workplace. On Tuesday morning, my phone rang. It was an unlisted number with a Montana area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. My job required me to answer unknown calls. I pressed accept. "Hello? Eliza Ward speaking?" There was a silence, filled only by a faint, clear static, the sound of a long-distance connection on an expensive, secure line. Then, a voice. It was deep, gravelly, and old. I had not heard it in perhaps 20 years. "Eliza, it's Arthur." I stood up from my desk. I walked to the window of my home office, my heart doing a slow, painful kick drum against my ribs. "Grandfather?" "Yes, I have been informed of an incident. A sheriff," he said the word with faint distaste, "visited a member of your father's household." "Yes, there was an incident." "I am aware." He cut me off, not unkindly, but with the impatience of a man who does not waste syllables. "There is a video, the one you filed with the court. I need you to send it to me." I froze. The video is part of a legal proceeding. It's in the hands of my attorney and the DA. "I am not the DA," he said. "Send me the original file. The unedited one. The one from the drone. All of it. Send it to my personal email. I will watch it. Just once. A dozen alarms went off in my head. This was the man who never intervened. Why now? Was he on their side? Was he calling to tell me to stand down? To protect the family name? Was this a test? Grandfather, I'm not sure. Eliza, he interrupted, and for the first time, there was a faint edge in his voice. Send me the video. Then the line clicked. He was gone. I immediately called Maya. I relayed the conversation word for word. She was quiet for a long time. Maya, are you there? I'm here, she said, her voice thoughtful. I'm running a risk assessment. He's a wild card. Eliza, a very, very powerful one. So I don't send it. No, I think you do, she said slowly. Think about it. He is your blood. He's not a Wardell. He's a Beaumont. He's famous for one thing, privacy. Camille and Vivian's entire strategy is public shame. Arthur will find that distasteful. He's not calling your father. He's not calling Vivian. He's calling you. He's asking for the raw data. He's an analyst, just like you. She paused. Send it. He's blood. And he's quiet. I'm more afraid of the loud ones. Let's see what the quiet one does with the truth. My hand was shaking as I opened my laptop. I created a new, secure email and attached the password-protected, encrypted files. The doorbell angle, the foyer angle, the 10-minute uncut drone footage from Gary. I sent it to the email address I had had in my contacts for a decade, but had never used. My phone, which had been blessedly silent, lit up with a new text message. It was Vivian. The restraining order was clearly not having the intended effect. I see what you've done. You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to go to the police, withdraw your lies, and post a public apology to me and Camille. If you do not, that disgusting, violent video you faked will be the least of your problems. I have other clips. I have friends in every local group. Your life here will be over. We will not be ruined by a liar. I stared at the message. It was pure, distilled panic. She was threatening me with a war of public opinion. A new email notification popped up. This one was forwarded to me by a colleague. It was a link to a crowdfunding site. Camille had already started her next narrative. She was pitching brands, not for a sponsorship, but for a special series. Lessons in Family Heartbreak, a Mother's Story. The description was nauseating. Join me as I navigate the most difficult trial a family can face, being attacked by someone you raised. This special series will explore boundaries, forgiveness, and the tragedy of mental instability. Your support will help me get the resources to tell this important story. She was trying to monetize the assault. She was pitching it as a docuseries. The brazenness of it, the cold, calculating opportunism, stole my breath. She wasn't just a vlogger. She was a producer, and she was turning my life into her product. I did not reply to Vivian. I did not click the link to Camille's grotesque pitch. I forwarded both to Maya with one word. More. I went to bed. I slept. For the first time in days, I slept. Because the board was set. The pieces were moving. The risk was no longer mine to manage alone. The next morning, I had an email. It was from Arthur's butler, a man I'd never met. It was sent at 3:05 a.m. Ms. Ward, Mr. Beaumont, has received and reviewed the file you sent. He thanks you for your promptness. He has instructed me to begin preparations. Regards, Hale. That was it. I had no idea what it meant. I went to work. I analyzed a commodities portfolio from Singapore. I had coffee. I lived my day. I found out what it meant that evening. Not from Arthur, but from my father. He called me. His voice a nervous tremor. Eliza, what have you done? What in God's name have you done? Dad? What are you talking about? Hawthorne Springs, Arthur. He's calling a full family meeting for Thanksgiving. Here, he's flying everyone out to Montana. He hasn't done this in ever. Vivian is hysterical. He just sent the invitations. Eliza, what did you show him? I looked out my window at the quiet, peaceful Vermont street. The maples were turning, their leaves a fiery, silent red. I thought of Arthur, alone in a dark room in his fortress in Montana, watching a high-definition video of Vivian shoving me, of Camille whispering, "Frame her in the doorway." I just showed him the truth. "Dad," I said, and for the first time, my voice was as cold and as steady as my grandfather's. I showed him exactly what happened. In my mind's eye, I saw Arthur Beaumont, a billionaire I barely knew, watching the file just once, seeing the data, then a cold, quiet silence, a single, decisive order to his butler. "Prepare the guest list for Thanksgiving at Hawthorne Springs this year." The game had just been moved to a new, much more dangerous board, and I had just been given the seat at the head of the table. The weeks between the restraining order and the Thanksgiving invitation were a new kind of Cold War. The battle was no longer on my porch. It had moved to the silent, invisible fronts of law, finance, and public opinion. On my side, Maya was relentless. She was not content with the temporary order. "A trough is a shield, Eliza," she told me over coffee, her office overlooking a rainy Vermont street. "Now, we build the sword. They didn't just shove you. They conspired to produce a piece of media for financial gain. And the assault was their manufactured climax. This isn't just domestic violence. It's premeditated wire fraud, using your image." She was escalating. She had formally submitted the entire forensic packet, the multiple camera angles, the audio enhancement of Camille directing the scene, the drone footage, my medical report, and Camille's fundraising pitch to the Lakeshore County District Attorney with a petition for a grand jury review. She was bypassing the simple assault charge and aiming for something that carried real prison time. "We are going to make them understand that you are not a character in their show," she said. "You are the executive producer of their consequences." The first crack in their fortress appeared not from the DA, but from the market. Camille's primary sponsor, a brand of boutique home cleaning supplies, posted a public statement. "In light of recent ethical controversies and disputed conduct, we are pausing our partnership with Camille Wardell. Pending a full review, we do not condone staged or harmful content." Pausing. The corporate word for running for the hills. I watched Camille's social media income, a metric I could track through public analytics tools, plummet by what looked to be 60% in a single day. Her comment section, once a river of adulation, had turned toxic. People were posting links to my father's community forums, where the story of the real video was now the dominant topic. The narrative she had spent years building was collapsing in on itself. The panic must have been immediate. My phone rang on a Wednesday night. It was Vivian. Her voice was not the shriek from my foyer. It was a low, syrupy, forced attempt at conciliation. "Eliza, this has gone too far," she said, as if she were commenting on a misbehaving child. I said nothing. I let the silence sit, a cold, hard stone between us. "Listen to me," she pressed, her voice cracking slightly. "This is family. Your father is a wreck. You've made your point. You've embarrassed us. So, that's it. It's done. You call off your lawyer. We'll agree to stay away. We can just put this all behind us, for the sake of peace." She was offering me peace, the peace that comes from surrendering, the peace that comes from letting the abuser dictate the terms of their own small, inconsequential punishment. "Vivian," I said, my voice as flat and sterile as a lab report. "My legal affairs are being handled by my attorney. You, or your attorney, can contact her. Do not call this number again." I hung up. I blocked her number. I blocked my father's number. The time for private negotiations was over. The only peace I was interested in was the one that came with a court order and a conviction. The invitation to Hawthorne Springs arrived 2 days later. A thick, cream-colored card that felt as heavy as a gold bar. It was an order, not a request. "Your presence is expected." I called Maya. "I have to go to this Thanksgiving thing," I said. "He's not asking." "I've been digging," she said, ignoring my comment. Her voice was sharp, excited. "I've been looking at their financials, trying to find leverage for the civil suit I'm preparing." And? "And I found it. Eliza, Vivian, and Camille. They haven't just been living off your father. They've been on a payroll." "What payroll?" "A small, private trust. The Wardell Family Assistance Fund. It pays out a quarterly stipend to both of them. It was established 10 years ago by Arthur Beaumont." I sat down. The world tilted slightly. He's been paying them? All this time? He's been funding them. "Not just funding them," Maya said. "He's been tracking them. I've seen trusts like this. They are ironclad. They are designed for one purpose: control. These men like Arthur, they don't give gifts. They make investments. And their investments always have terms." She explained that she had immediately looked for the trust's public charter. "There will be a moral turpitude clause," she said. "I would bet my license on it. A clause that states that if a beneficiary engages in criminal conduct, creates a public scandal, or does anything to harm the reputation of the founder or the family name, the tap gets turned off, instantly." I was silent, connecting the dots, the video, his one, cold viewing, the invitation. "He's not just calling a meeting, Eliza," Maya whispered, her own sense of awe coming through the line. "He's calling an execution. He's been letting them live on his dime. And he just watched them try to publicly and physically destroy his own granddaughter. You didn't just give him evidence for the DEA, you gave him the trigger for the kill switch." The full picture was slowly emerging. Arthur hadn't called them to yell at them. He hadn't called to scold. He had simply handed the video file to his private legal team and likely ordered a full, surprise audit of the assistance fund. And he had found what he was looking for. I knew, as a risk manager, what an audit would find. It would find Camille's business expenses. It would find the thousands of dollars she had undoubtedly funneled from the assistance fund into her vlog. The new cameras, the lighting, the trips, the bots she used to buy views. She had been using Arthur's money to build the very platform she used to attack Arthur's blood. The legal advice he would have received was simple. Triggering the clause would not only freeze all future payments, it would likely demand repayment of all misused funds, and the beneficiary status? It could be transferred. To me. But Arthur's move wasn't just on the income side. Maya had found one more thing. "This is the real checkmate. Eliza," she said. "Camille lives in a condo, right? In the nice part of town?" "Yes," I said. "She's very proud of it." "She has a mortgage, or rather, she had a mortgage. I was looking at public property records this afternoon. Her entire mortgage, the full debt, was just purchased. It was bought out by a new holding company, a special purpose vehicle, an SPV, registered just last week." I knew what an SPV was. It was a corporate shell, an anonymous entity used to acquire an asset without showing your hand. "Who registered the SPV?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "A high-end mergers and acquisitions law firm," Maya said. "Their main office is in Helena, Montana." He hadn't just cut off her allowance. He had bought her house. He now owned her debt. He was not her benefactor. He was her creditor. All of this had happened in the space of 72 hours. Not a single word was spoken to them. Not one threat was made. Arthur Beaumont had stayed completely, terrifyingly silent. He had simply moved his pieces across the financial board, dismantling their lives, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. And they had no idea. They were packing their bags for Thanksgiving, flying first class on his dime, no doubt. They were probably practicing their speeches, preparing their tears, ready to perform their victimhood for the old man. They thought they were flying to a family reunion. They had no idea they were flying to a foreclosure hearing, an audit review, and a disinheritance, all rolled into one. The board was set, the trap was laid, and I, for the first time in my life, was grateful for the cold, calculating, and utterly silent protection of the Beaumont name. The fire started not with a bang, but with a link. It was posted anonymously in the Coldwater Residents group on Facebook, a sleepy digital town square normally reserved for complaints about recycling schedules and pictures of lost cats. The post was simple, a link to an unlisted video streaming site, and one sentence of text. A lot of opinions flying around about the incident on Maple Street. Maybe watch the full 60 seconds before you judge. The link was to Gary's drone footage, the full 10-minute, high-definition, uncut file. My phone, which I had set to silent, began to vibrate on my kitchen counter. It did not stop for 3 hours. The link was shared, and shared again and again. I watched, mesmerized, as the digital tide turned. The comment section of the residents' group was a sea of raw, shifting opinion. Wait, what am I seeing? She pushed her. Vivian Wardell shoved her. That's not what Camille's video showed. Oh my God, that other video was a lie. Listen, turn the sound up. You can hear the cousin, Camille, telling her where to stand. You're blocking my light. She directed it. The public narrative, the one Camille had spent a lifetime curating and the last week weaponizing, evaporated in about 90 minutes. The pity I had seen directed at her. Poor Camille, attacked by her unstable niece, reversed with the brutal, whiplash speed of a digital mob. It turned from pity to fascination, and then, quickly, to pure, distilled outrage. They were not just angry at Vivian for the assault. They were enraged at Camille for the deception. They had been manipulated. They had been lied to, and they were furious. Camille, in her panicked arrogance, made her second fatal mistake. She went live. A notification popped up. Camille Wardell is streaming live. I tapped it. Her face filled my screen. She was in her pristine white kitchen, but her face was a mess. She was blotchy, her eyes red, her expensive makeup smeared. She was trying to cry, but it looked more like she was hyperventilating. I cannot believe what is happening, she stammered, her voice thin. I am being bullied. That video, it's faked. It's doctored. Eliza, she lured us there. She has computers. She works in finance. She knows how to doctor things. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. She was accusing me of being a deep-fake artist while she was visibly unraveling. She started screaming at us, so I only started filming to protect myself, she sobbed to the 300 viewers who had tuned in. A comment flashed by on her screen. Then why does the timestamp on the drone footage show you were already filming when you were on the sidewalk? Why did you tell Vivian to move left? Camille saw it. Her eyes darted to the comment, and she froze. She had just contradicted the metadata. She had just, on a live video, admitted to filming, while simultaneously lying about when she started. You people don't know the truth, she shrieked. You don't know what I've had to put up with. You're violating your restraining order right now just by talking about her. Another comment read. She stared, open-mouthed. Then her hand fumbled for the phone, and the screen went black. The live stream was over. She had immolated herself. The next morning, the official world caught up. The local paper, the Coldwater Gazette, ran a small, factual story on page 3. It was devastating. They had called the Lakeshore County Police. A spokesman for the LCPD confirmed that an active investigation is underway regarding an incident. Police confirmed that a temporary restraining order has been served, and that both parties have been ordered to have no contact with Miss Ward or her residence. It was real. It was no longer a Facebook rumor. It was a confirmed police investigation. That morning, when I walked into the lobby of North Star Apex Holdings, the air felt different. The normal hum of conversation quieted. People were not looking at me, but they were intensely aware of me. The head of building security, a retired police officer named Frank, met me at the elevator bank. Ms. Ward, he said, his voice low and professional. I've been asked by HR to escort you to your office, and I'll be posted on your floor for the remainder of the day. Just a precaution. I nodded, my face burning. Thank you, Frank. It was necessary, it was supportive, and it was deeply, profoundly humiliating. I was now the woman who needed a guard, I was the scandal. I sat at my desk, the glass walls of my office feeling like a fishbowl. I opened my portfolio. I had a risk assessment due on a Singapore shipping lane. I forced my eyes to focus on the spreadsheets. My desk phone rang. It was Maya. "Well," she said, and I could hear the grim satisfaction in her voice. That was a productive evening. Camille's live stream was a gift. She violated the TRO in front of 300 witnesses. I've already filed a motion for contempt. "What's next?" I asked, watching Frank pace the corridor outside my office. "What's next is that the DEA is taking this very seriously. The drone footage, Gary's footage, the one from the other neighbor. Yes, a third one came forward. It's all being submitted to the grand jury packet. They are no longer looking at simple assault. They are looking at conspiracy, wire fraud, and harassment." She was building a fortress, just as she'd promised. While Camille had imploded publicly, Vivian was imploding privately. She, too, had seen the drone footage. She, too, had seen the police report in the paper. Her panic took a different, more familiar form. She started texting me from burner numbers, cheap prepaid phones. They were a rapid-fire barrage of contradictions. The first text: "Eliza, you have to stop this. You are destroying your father. He is sick with worry. He loves you. How can you do this to him? This is family. Please, just call off the lawyers. We can fix this." I did not reply. The second text, an hour later: "You vicious little monster. Fine. You want war? You'll get one. My lawyer will be contacting you. We are suing you for slander, for defamation, for faking that drone video. You will be ruined. Your precious job will know what a liar you are." I screenshotted both. I emailed them to Maya with the subject line: "More evidence." The entire local world was on fire, and from Montana, silence, not a word. The silence from Hawthorne Springs was louder than all the noise in Vermont. I broke. I called Maya. "I don't understand," I said, my voice low. "Arthur, he sees this. He must see the papers. The circus. Why isn't he doing anything?" "He is," Maya said, her voice sharp. "Eliza, you are a risk manager. Think, when you are winning, you don't interrupt your opponent while they are making mistakes. You let them." His lawyer called me this morning, just to check in. Arthur's only instruction, his only words on the matter, were, "Give them enough rope. They are doing our job for us." He was letting them hang themselves. He was letting the public, the police, and their own stupidity do the work. But he was not inactive. The other part of his plan, the financial part, was moving just as silently. On Friday, a certified letter arrived at Camille's condo. Maya received a courtesy copy as my counsel. It was not from a lawyer, it was from a bank, or rather, the special purpose vehicle that now owned the bank's mortgage on her home. It was a notice of default and acceleration. It stated that the new lien holder, the anonymous SPV, was exercising a specific, freshly added clause in her loan agreement, a moral turpitude and public conduct clause. It stated that because the borrower, Camille, was now the subject of a confirmed police investigation and had engaged in public behavior that constituted a significant ethical scandal, she was in default of her terms. The SPV was accelerating the loan. The entire remaining balance of her mortgage, over $300,000, was due in full within 30 days. If she could not pay, foreclosure proceedings would begin on day 31. Camille, whose sponsors were gone, whose income was zero, and who was now facing criminal charges, was about to be homeless. Arthur had given her enough rope, and the SPV had just kicked the chair out from under her. I read the letter twice. My hands were perfectly steady. I filed it in the folder Maya had told me to keep. Then I turned back to my monitor. I had work to do. I would not be defined by their scandal. I would not be pulled into their noise. They could scream. They could threaten. They could cry on live streams. I was going to work. I was going to finish my risk assessment. And in 2 weeks, I was going to fly to Montana for Thanksgiving. The legal and financial machinery was grinding away in the background. A distant, automated process, but the immediate fallout, the human part, was a static hum in my bones. I was safe, but I was not settled. The guard, Frank, was no longer on my floor, but the silence in my house felt different. It felt brittle. My job was to manage risk, but the primary risk, my own emotional state, was something my spreadsheets couldn't quantify. Maya had recommended someone a week ago. "She's not a soft and fluffy therapist," she'd said. "She's a specialist, Dr. Clara Monroe. She deals with high-conflict individuals, stalking, and corporate security. She speaks your language." I made the call. Dr. Monroe's office was in a sleek, modern building downtown. There was no art on the walls, just framed certifications. She was a woman in her late 50s, with sharp eyes and an air of absolute, unshakable calm. "You've had a busy few weeks, Ms. Ward," she began, her voice neutral as she glanced at the brief file I had authorized Maya to send. "You've built a very strong legal case. My job isn't to relitigate it. My job is to address the breach." "The breach," I repeated. I liked the word. It was a term from my own field. "Yes, your home, your privacy, and your professional identity were all breached," she said. "You have responded by building a fortress, legal, digital, and physical. Now, we need to make sure the fortress isn't a prison. We need to reinforce the person living inside it." She leaned forward. "Let's talk about boundaries, not as a vague wellness term, as a security protocol. Your boundary was, you are not invited, do not come." They ignored it. Your boundary became, you must leave. They ignored it. Your boundary became, get out of my house. They responded with physical force. You then had to escalate to an external, lethal force boundary. The police. You did everything right. Eliza. You followed a logical escalation of force. I had not realized I was holding my breath. I let it out. It felt like I had failed, that I let it get that far. "Did you?" she asked. "Or did you simply finally refuse to manage their emotions? Refuse to de-escalate their bad behavior at your own expense?" That hit me. "I've been managing their emotions my whole life." "Exactly. And you were taught that your primary job was to keep the peace, even if it cost you your own. Your refusal to do that is what they perceived as an attack." She gave me an assignment, a practical, concrete task. "I want you to write a letter to Vivian," she said. "You will not send it. This is not for her. It is for you. It is your internal after-action report. I want you to name, in the clearest possible terms, every boundary she has ever crossed, from the debit card at 16 to the shove at 32. Do not use emotional language. Use legal language. Theft, harassment, coercion, assault." That night, I sat at my desk, the same desk where I analyzed market fluctuations, and I wrote, "To Vivian, you were not invited into my home. You entered it by force. That is breaking and entering. You put your hands on me. That is assault. When I was 16, you took my debit card and closed my account. That was theft. You justified it as teaching me to save. That was coercion. You have repeatedly enabled and encouraged Camille to film me against my will in private settings. That is harassment." The list went on, page after page. I cataloged every family joke that was public humiliation, every household rule that was financial control, every family talk that was an ambush. I named the trauma. I put a legal definition to it. And as I wrote, I finally understood why I had let it go on for so long. The word, the one they used against me like a weapon, floated to the surface, ungrateful. I had lived in terror of that word. I had yielded. I had placated. I had shrunk, all to avoid being called ungrateful. I had let them take my money, my dignity, and my peace, because the price of fighting back was being labeled the cold, ungrateful stepdaughter who didn't appreciate the family that had taken her in. But they hadn't taken me in. They had monetized me. They had used me, and my gratitude was supposed to be the currency for my own silence. I stopped writing. I looked at the pages, a comprehensive indictment spanning nearly 2 decades. I would not send it. I did not need to. The case was closed. I put the letter in my desk drawer and locked it. The act of writing it had rebuilt something inside me. The boundary was no longer a request I was making to them. It was a fact I was stating to myself. The next day, I began to change my protocols. I was acting not from a place of fear, but from a place of cold, clear policy. I called my security company and upgraded my plan. I changed all my access codes. I wrote a new emergency contact list. Maya was at the top. Gary, my neighbor, was second. My father was not on it. I drafted a new visitor protocol for my home. All visits, even from friends, required a text confirmation 1 hour prior. No one was to be let in who was not on the confirmed list. It was what my company did at its front desk. It was now what I did at mine. My silence on social media was absolute. The noise was deafening. Camille's frantic apologies. Vivian's attempts to reframe the narrative. The endless online sleuths digging into our family, but I did not participate. I let Maya's legal filings and the police report speak for me. The truth was a matter of public record. It did not require my commentary. My healing wasn't just about building walls. It was about redirecting resources. I thought about Camille's grotesque Lessons in Family Heartbreak fundraiser. She had tried to monetize my assault. She had tried to turn my pain into her profit. I opened a private, anonymous donor-advised fund. I put $5,000 into it. Then I set up a grant, directing the full amount to the Lakeshore County Shelter for Adult Victims of Domestic Violence. It was the place the police had recommended I call. A safe house for adults, men and women, facing exactly this kind of intimate partner or family violence. My money, the money I had earned and protected, would be used not to create content, but to create safety. It was a quiet, invisible act. It was the precise opposite of what Camille had done, and it made me feel strong. A week before Thanksgiving, another one of the cream-colored envelopes arrived from Montana. It was not a card, it was a package, heavy and smelling faintly of old paper and leather. Inside, there was a book. It was an old, first-edition copy of Sun Tzu's The Art of War. There was no letter, just a handwritten inscription on the inside cover, in Arthur's sharp, definitive script. Keep what is yours. I ran my thumb over the words. It was not, fight for what is yours. It was not, take what is yours. It was keep. It was a statement of defense. It was a validation of every wall I had built, every boundary I had drawn. He understood. He, in his silent fortress, understood my quiet one. I was beginning to believe, for the first time, that this could end without a screaming match. It would not be a dramatic, cinematic explosion. It would be a series of legal and financial maneuvers, a quiet, orderly execution of consequences. It would end not with a shout, but with the gavel of a judge, the signature on a settlement, and the click of a lock. The final piece of my own reconstruction came from an unexpected place. Sarah, the head of HR at North Star, sent me an email. Eliza, there is a lot of internal discussion around the Women in Leadership group about digital security and harassment, your situation, which has been handled with extraordinary professionalism, has brought this to the forefront. Would you be willing to be a guest speaker at our next internal luncheon? The topic would be digital safety and boundary setting in the modern world. It would be a closed, internal-only event for female colleagues. Absolutely no pressure, but I think your voice would be invaluable. My first instinct was to say no, to hide, to keep my professional life and this toxic personal drama completely separate. I looked at the email. I looked at the book from Arthur. Camille had tried to tell my story for me, to frame me as a violent and unstable villain. Sarah was offering me a chance to tell my own story. Not the salacious details, but the strategy. Not the trauma, but the response. It was a way to reframe my experience, not as a scandal that had happened to me, but as a risk that I was successfully managing. I wrote back, Sarah, I would be honored. Please send me the details. I was not the same woman I was a month ago. The person who had lived in fear of being called ungrateful was gone. The person who believed that keeping the peace was her highest duty was gone. The woman who was left was harder. She was more careful. She was, I thought, as I looked at my new security panel, more secure. My internal framework had been breached, but I had not shattered. I had rebuilt. I was hard, but I was not broken. The flight to Montana was a lesson in pressure change. Coldwater was sea level. Hawthorne Springs was 8,000 feet above it. The air was thin, sharp, and unforgiving. The compound itself was not a home. It was a statement. It was a fortress of glass, raw timber, and dark Montana stone, built into the side of a mountain that seemed to actively resent its presence. It overlooked a vast, dark lake that looked like a sheet of polished obsidian. I did not come alone. Maya flew with me, my father, who met us at the private airstrip, looked pale and sick. His eyes darted to Maya, who carried a slim leather briefcase. "You brought your lawyer?" he whispered, as if the wind itself was listening. "To Thanksgiving, Dad?" "No, I brought my guest." Maya had been adamant. "You are going, Eliza. You will not hide, and you will not decline his invitation. The restraining order is in full effect, and I have already communicated with Mr. Beaumont's head of security. They are fully briefed. The compound." She had tapped the floor plan Arthur's butler had emailed her. "Is over 30,000 square feet. They will be in the east wing. You will be in the west. You will never be within 100 yards of them, except in a supervised, public setting. This is not a family dinner. It is a deposition, and I am not attending as your lawyer. I am attending as your witness." She was right. Two men in dark, impeccably tailored suits and subtle earpieces met us at the massive front door. They were Arthur's private security. They nodded to Maya, a brief acknowledgement of a colleague. "Ms. Sloan, we have the parameters. Your wing is secure. The other parties are confined to theirs. A guard is posted in the grand hall at all times." The invitation, resting on the dresser in my sterile, perfect guest suite, had set the entire trap. "Thanksgiving dinner will be served at 6 o'clock. Each guest is required to bring one thing, a truth never before spoken." It was a masterful piece of psychological bait. To me, it was a summons to present my case. To Vivian and Camille, it was an opportunity. They had seized on it. My father had told me in a panicked, rambling call. They saw it as their chance to clear the air, to finally explain their side of the story. They were coming to this dinner armed with a performance. They had spent 2 weeks rehearsing their truth. They were going to paint me as the unstable, violent, and vindictive daughter who had misunderstood their loving concern. They were going to weep, to beg forgiveness for my outburst, and to appeal to Arthur, the reclusive patriarch, to heal the family. They had no idea that Arthur was not a healer. He was an auditor. The guest list was small, which only amplified the tension. There was my father, a ghost in his own life. There were Vivian and Camille, who I saw from a distance, huddled together, radiating a desperate, toxic energy. There was me, and there was Maya. And there were 3 others, 3 people who were definitively not family. They were seated at a small, separate table near the fireplace when we convened for drinks. The first 2 were a package deal. A stern-looking woman in a gray suit with a notary's briefcase, and a man in his 60s who radiated the expensive, Arctic chill of a private wealth executor. This was the man who managed the Beaumont Trust. The third man was the one who made my stomach clench. He was in his late 30s, wearing a fashionable blazer and an expression of profound boredom. I recognized him instantly from Maya's research. He was a junior development executive from the content production company that had financed Camille's last, largest brand partnership. He was not here as a friend. He was, as Maya had quietly noted, a vulture. He was here to conduct a brand risk assessment in person. He was here to see if Camille was salvageable, or if she was a liability to be cut loose, sued, and buried. Camille, I saw, could barely look at him. Her entire career was in that room, and it was watching her with cold, disinterested eyes. At 5:50, Hale, the butler, opened the massive doors to the formal dining hall. My blood ran cold. This was not a dining room, it was a courtroom. The long, polished mahogany table was set for a feast, yes, with silver and crystal that reflected the cold Montana light. But the room itself had been reconfigured, at the far end, where a massive 16th century tapestry of a hunt should have been. There was now a 90-inch, high-definition display screen. It was dark, a black mirror reflecting our anxious faces. In the four corners of the room, disguised among the ceiling beams, were professional-grade speakers, and on a heavy oak sideboard, next to a battalion of wine decanters, sat a single, silver, portable digital forensics drive. It was the exact model ARS security had used to seal my evidence. Arthur had not prepared a dinner. He had prepared a screening. The seating chart was the final, brilliant move. It was a map of Arthur's strategy. He, of course, took the head of the table. To his immediate right, he placed the trust executor. To his immediate left, he placed the notary public. He had flanked himself with his legal and financial power. I was placed directly in the center of the table. On the right, Maya was seated right next to me. We were in the heart of the room. My father, Vivian, and Camille were seated at the absolute farthest end of the table. They were clustered together, 30 feet of polished wood and 5 other people separating us. They were isolated, a defendant's table. The restraining order was being honored with geographical precision. The room was silent. The tension was a physical thing, a weight in the air that made it hard to breathe. The rumor that had been circulating for weeks, that Arthur was about to announce a full restructuring of the Beaumont family fund, hung over us. Everyone in that room, except for me and Maya, was here to audition for their financial survival. I watched Camille. She was vibrating with a frantic, desperate energy. The presence of the production executive had pushed her past reason. Her house was in foreclosure. Her income was gone. Her reputation was shattered. She had nothing left but this performance. She had to win. She had to seize the narrative first. I saw her look at Vivian. I saw her touch her own chest. A signal. I saw her take a shaky, performative breath. She was going to make her move. She was going to use her truth to strike before anyone else could speak. She was going to frame herself as the victim, to paint me as the monster, to beg for Arthur's mercy. It was a desperate, all-or-nothing gamble. She was betting the farm on her ability to cry better than I could present facts. The heavy doors of the dining hall were closed by the security detail. The sound was a deep, final thud. The world was shut out. Hale, the butler, moved with silent precision to the sideboard. He picked up a small, silver remote control and placed it on the table, directly by Arthur's right hand. Arthur did not look at it. He did not look at the screen. He looked down the long, long table. His eyes, cold and clear, passed over every single guest. They passed over the lawyer, the notary, the executive, my father, Vivian. Finally, they landed on Camille. He let the silence stretch for 1, 2, 3 more seconds. "Welcome," he said. His voice was gravelly, quiet, yet it filled the entire room, amplified perfectly by the hidden speakers. "We are here for Thanksgiving, and we are here for the truth." He paused, his eyes still locked on Camille. "Let us begin. Let us begin," Arthur repeated. His voice was a flat line. "We will go around the table. Each person will share their truth." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the nervous clinking of silverware. The trust executor cleared his throat and spoke about a market fluctuation. The notary spoke about the historical precedent of Montana land deeds. They were filling the air, setting a formal, non-familial tone. My father, when his turn came, just mumbled, I'm just glad we're all here," his eyes skittering away from everyone. Then, Arthur's gaze landed on the far end of the table. "Camille." This was the moment. The spotlight she had always craved was now on her, and it was a blinding surgical beam. She pushed her chair back slightly. She did not stand, but she sat up, her hands clasped on the table, and she began to weep. It was a practiced, ugly performance. My truth, she choked out, her voice thick with manufactured tears, is that I have lived my life trying to heal this family. I have tried to bring us together, my work, my content. It's all about love. It's about forgiveness. She glanced at the production executive, a desperate, pleading look. And my truth is that I have been slandered. I have been attacked, Eliza. She turned her wet eyes to me, 30 feet of polished wood between us. I love you, but you have a despotic personality. You twist things. You drew us to your home that day to manufacture this, to create this drama, and I only filmed because I was afraid. The production executive did not move. He just watched, his expression flat, as if he were analyzing a bad focus group. I just ask, she whispered, her voice breaking, that you try to understand. Please, try to understand the pressure a content creator is under. We have to show the truth. And sometimes the truth is ugly. She finished, dabbing her eyes with a linen napkin, clearly satisfied with her performance. Arthur's gaze was unmoved. Vivian, emboldened by Camille's theatricals, took a different tack, the righteous, wounded matriarch. I have no truth that anyone here doesn't already know, she began, her voice sharp with indignation. I took Eliza in when she had no one. I raised her. I gave her a home. My father-in-law, Arthur, he knows. He knows I have given everything to this family, to his son, and what happened at that house. She shook her head, a picture of profound misunderstanding. It was a mother's concern. The girl was agitated. She was unwell. I simply reached out my hand to steady her, to hold her, and she fell. She twisted it into this horrible, public lie. She fixed her gaze on Arthur. My truth is that my love has been misunderstood, and my stepdaughter has chosen to try and ruin me for it. The air in the room was suffocating. They had said their pieces. They had delivered their pre-scripted lies. They had accused me, in front of this entire audience, of being a violent, despotic, and ungrateful liar. I looked at Maya. She was perfectly still, her hands in her lap. She was not a lawyer. She was a witness. I looked at Arthur. He had not moved a muscle during their entire performance. His face was a mask of cold, polite interest. He let the silence stretch, letting their words hang in the air, a toxic, cloying perfume. He did not look at them. He did not look at me. He looked at the head of his security detail, a tall man standing by the forensics drive. Arthur gave a single, curt nod. The man pressed a button. The 90-inch screen at the end of the room blazed to life. It was not one video. It was 3. A perfect synchronized, split-screen display. Top left, the crystal clear, high-definition feed from my smart doorbell. Top right, the wide-angle, colorless feed from my foyer camera. Bottom, the massive, damning, high-altitude footage from Gary's drone, showing the entire front of my house, the street, and the porch. All 3 feeds had been professionally synced to the nanosecond. The audio, piped through the room's speakers, was not the faint, tinny sound from a phone. It was the forensically enhanced, isolated audio from my internal and external microphones. The room watched, in absolute pin-drop silence, as the entire 10-minute event unfolded. We watched them walk up the path. We heard Camille, her voice clear as a bell, narrating her peace mission. We heard my voice, calm and projected from the speaker. You are trespassing. Please leave. We heard Vivian's shriek. Open the door. We heard my voice, again, at the open door. You have 60 seconds to leave my property. And then, we heard it, the audio that destroyed everything. We heard Camille's sharp whisper, captured by the doorbell mic. Move a little left. Vivian, you're blocking my light. We heard her second whisper. Wait for her to talk. Good, good. Frame her in the doorway. The production executive's head snapped up. His boredom was gone. He was watching. Now, he was listening. We watched Vivian lunge, her shoulder slamming the door. We saw me stumble back, catching myself on the newel post. We saw the two-handed shove. We saw my feet leave the floor for a split second as I slammed into the wall. And we heard the audio that accompanied the shove. Vivian's scream, "You don't close the door on me!" And my reply, "Vivian, get out. You are assaulting me." We saw Camille, her phone steady as a surgeon's hand, stepping into the foyer, her eyes focused, her expression one of greedy concentration. And then, the finale. We heard the panic alarm. We heard the security dispatcher's booming voice, and we heard Camille, her voice a low, excited mutter, captured perfectly by the foyer microphone. "This is amazing. This clip is going to go nuclear." The screen went black. The silence in the room was not silence. It was a vacuum. Every molecule of air, of polite pretense, of family bullshit, had been sucked out. Camille's face was white, not pale. It was the bloodless, waxy white of a mannequin. Vivian was staring, her mouth open, her chest heaving. My father had his eyes closed, his face in his hands. The security man spoke, his voice as flat and emotionless as the screen. "The 3 video files you have just seen were extracted by an ARS forensic technician. The chain of custody is unbroken. The file hash signatures and embedded metadata are verified. The audio has been enhanced for clarity, but not altered. This presentation is a true and accurate depiction of the event." Arthur's gaze swept the room. It did not linger on the 2 women. He looked at the production executive. He looked at his son. He looked at the trust executor. Then he spoke. One simple question, directed at the far end of the table. "Does anyone," he asked, his voice a quiet blade, "wish to retract their previous statement?" Camille looked like she was going to be sick. Vivian just stared, vibrating, wordless. They said nothing. "Very well," Arthur said. He turned to the woman in the gray suit. "Madam Notary, if you please." The notary, who had been watching with zero expression, opened her briefcase. She pulled out a single, thick document. "By the authority of the Beaumont Family Trust, Section 4, Subsection C, I am here to witness and formally declare an addendum," she read, her voice ringing out in the dead quiet. "The moral turpitude and reputational harm clause has been invoked against beneficiaries Vivian Wardell and Camille Wardell." She looked up, her eyes cold. "Evidence has been presented to the executor showing a conspiracy to commit fraud, a physical assault, and a deliberate, malicious campaign of public defamation, all designed to harm another beneficiary and, by extension, the reputation of the Beaumont name." Vivian made a small, strangled sound. The notary continued. "Effective immediately, all disbursements from the Wardell Family Assistance Fund to both parties are suspended, indefinitely. A full 10-year audit is required. Repayment of all funds determined to be misused, including but not limited to funds used for the purchase of social media engagement or production equipment, is hereby demanded. Failure to comply will result in civil action." It was a death sentence. Before Camille could even process it, the trust executor, the man to Arthur's right, spoke. He slid a second, slimmer envelope across the table. "Ms. Wardell," he said, his voice clipped. "In my capacity as director of the SPV that now holds your mortgage, I am legally required to serve you this notice. As you have been found in violation of the conduct clauses of your loan agreement, we are accelerating the debt. The full balance is due. This is a formal notice of foreclosure." That was the second blade. The first took her income. The second took her home. They stared, shattered. The trap had been sprung, and it was perfect. Arthur let the reality of their new, bankrupt lives settle on them for a full 10 seconds. Then, he turned his chair, just slightly, to face me. He looked at me, his gaze clear, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes, It was not warmth, it was recognition. "Eliza," he said, his voice resonating through the room. "The branch of the fund that supported them, the Educational and Assistance Fund, is now without an administrator. I am naming you. Effective immediately. You will have full discretionary control over its disbursements. Furthermore," he added, "I am adding a new provision. You will have permanent veto power over any and all proposals made by any member of this family. If you do not sign off, it does not get funded." Vivian gasped, a ragged, desperate sound. "No, Arthur, no, you can't." Camille just sat there, broken, the tears now real, silent, and utterly useless. Arthur did not look at them. He was still looking at me. It was done. My price was not silence. My price was not money. My price was control. My price was the power to ensure this could never, ever happen again. To me or to anyone else they decided to target. My father looked up, his face a ruin of shame. "Arthur, she's my wife." "She is," Arthur said, his voice flat. "And this is my granddaughter. The dinner is served." Vivian, in a last desperate act of a dying queen, stood up so fast her chair screeched. This is a trial. This is an ambush." Arthur finally looked at her. "Yes," he said, "it is. The difference is, my evidence was real. Please be seated. You are my guests." The room was a tomb, the feast laid out on the mahogany table. The turkey, the silver gravy boats, the jewel-colored cranberry sauce, was an obscene gesture in the face of the ruin that had just occurred. It was food for a funeral. Vivian sat, not just defeated, but erased. Camille was visibly shaking, her skin a waxy, sickly pale. My father's head was still in his hands. Arthur did not reach for a wineglass. He looked at the notary. One last piece of administration before the meal, the addendum regarding the vacancy. The notary, who had not moved, produced a final sheet of paper. "I am here to witness and notarize the final provision to the Beaumont Education and Safety Fund," she read, her voice a metronome. "Should the primary beneficiaries, Vivian Wardell and Camille Wardell, fail to meet the repayment schedule as demanded by the audit," she paused, "or should they be found in criminal violation, their rights of beneficial interest are permanently and irrevocably extinguished." She looked up. "The full rights of administration and beneficial interest will, in that event, be transferred in their entirety to the secondary appointee." She looked directly at me. "Eliza Ward." Arthur took a heavy, black ink fountain pen from his jacket. He signed his name at the bottom of the document. The scratch of the nib on the thick, cream-colored paper was the loudest sound in the room. He had not just cut them off, he had replaced them. As he was capping his pen, Maya, who had been glancing at her phone under the table, looked up. A small, satisfied, and entirely professional smile touched her lips. "Excuse me, Arthur, this is timely." She angled her phone screen toward the head of the table. "I have just received an official email notification from the Lakeshore County District Attorney's Office. They have forwarded their formal notice of intent." A new, sharper terror entered Camille's eyes. This was not family money. This was the state. Maya read, her voice clear and cutting. "Based on the overwhelming and corroborated digital evidence, and noting the subsequent attempts at witness intimidation and public manipulation, the state is proceeding. The grand jury review has returned an indictment on 3 misdemeanor charges: assault in the 3rd degree, criminal trespass, and obstruction of an investigation via the willful tampering of evidence." I felt the shift. The financial ruin was a private affair, a family execution. This was public. This was a criminal record. This was jail time. Vivian made a sound, a thin, desperate whine. "No, please, Arthur, don't let them." "That," Maya said, cutting her off, "is the criminal track. It is, as you might say, out of our hands." She then reached down and placed her own slim leather briefcase on the table. She clicked it open. "However, my client, Ms. Ward, is a private citizen. She has no personal interest in a protracted public battle. She is prepared, on the civil front, to offer an agreement. She pulled out a document, identical to the one the notary had, and slid it down the table. It's very simple. You will sign a full, public, and binding apology, the text of which I have already drafted. You will post it on all your social media channels within 24 hours. She looked at Camille. You will permanently delete every piece of content, video, audio, or text, that has ever referred to my client. You will submit to a forensic wipe of your devices to prove it. She looked at both of them. You will make a mandatory 5-figure contribution to the Lakeshore County Shelter for Adult Victims of Domestic Violence. The payment is due in 30 days. And finally, the temporary restraining order becomes a permanent, lifetime no-contact agreement. You will never speak to, about, or near Eliza Ward again, in any capacity, ever. She let the terms sink in. Sign this, Maya concluded, and the civil suit I have prepared for defamation, assault, and conspiracy to commit fraud, seeking 7 figures in damages, will not be filed. This is your only path to mitigation. This is the only deal you will ever be offered. It was Camille who snapped. She looked past Maya, past me, to the one person she thought she had left, the production executive. Her voice was a desperate shriek. This is insane. You know this is insane. It was content. It was a skit. It wasn't real. We create narratives. That's the job. You can't ruin my life for creating a narrative. The executive, who had been watching all this with the cold disinterest of a man analyzing a failed product, finally moved. Before he could speak, Arthur's head of security, the man by the sideboard, stepped forward. Mr. Beaumont, if I may? Arthur nodded. We just received a secondary file from our contacts in Coldwater, the guard said, his voice booming in the quiet room. Another neighbor came forward, a Mr. Henderson, from 4 doors down. He, too, was flying a drone. He pressed a button. The screen, which had been black, flashed to life again. It was a new angle, not from above, from the side, lower. It showed the porch clearly. It showed Camille, not just filming, but directing. We watched her, her voice tinny but unmistakable, physically grab Vivian's arm and pull her back 2 steps. No, stand here, her voice barked. The light is better. Wait until she opens the door. Then you start crying. And for God's sake, mean it this time. Camille stopped breathing. The production executive stood up. He calmly placed his linen napkin on the table. He did not look at Camille. He looked at Arthur. Thank you for the meal, Mr. Beaumont, he said, his voice flat. I believe our brand's internal review is complete. He turned and walked out of the dining room. The heavy door shut behind him, the thud as final as a gavel. Camille made a sound. It was a low, hollow noise, the sound of a building collapsing in on itself. Her career, her last hope, her entire constructed identity, had just walked out of the room. Arthur watched the door close. He turned his gaze back to the ruined women at the end of his table. I was an early investor in 3 major media conglomerates. Camille, he said, his voice almost conversational, as if discussing the weather. I built a significant portion of my fortune by being able to distinguish between an authentic market and a staged narrative. I knew you were lying before I ever saw the drone footage. Vivian looked up, confused. What? The audio, Arthur said. I only needed to listen to the feed from the foyer camera once, the lilt in your voice. Camille, when you whispered, "This will go nuclear." That was not the voice of someone who was afraid. That was the voice of someone admiring their own product. It was product satisfaction. I knew exactly what you were. You just spent the last hour confirming it. I looked away from them. I did not need to see them crumble. I had no interest in their destruction. I was looking at the document the notary had just slid in front of me, the one naming me as administrator, the Beaumont Education and Safety Fund. And beneath it, A list of programs he had been funding quietly for years: scholarships for women in financial technology, anonymous grants for domestic violence shelters in rural states, a specialized fund for providing digital forensic services to victims of online harassment. My power wasn't a veto, it was this. I realized, in that moment, that Arthur had not given me a sword to continue the war. He had given me a plowshare. He had given me a toolbox to start building. The real power, the Beaumont power, was not in the tearing down. It was in the quiet, patient, and overwhelmingly resourced act of construction. Vivian, broken, picked up the pen. My father would not look at her. She signed the civil agreement. Her hand was shaking so badly her signature was a jagged, illegible line. Camille signed next. Her signature was a dead, empty scrawl. Maya took the document. The notary stood, took it from her, placed her seal upon it, and stamped it. Thump. It was done. The restraining order was extended to a permanent, 10-year term. My personal security was upgraded to a permanent, monitored protocol. Camille, facing criminal charges, financial ruin, and foreclosure, filed for bankruptcy 2 weeks later. She lost her condo, her platform, and her career. The last I heard, she was working as a cashier at a grocery store in another county, her wages being garnished to pay the court-mandated restitution to the shelter. Vivian. She just ceased to exist in any meaningful way. She remained my father's wife, but she was a ghost in her own home, stripped of her allowance, her social standing, and her power. She was, finally, just a woman in a house. After the signing, after the notary and the executor had packed their briefcases, Arthur dismissed everyone. The meal was cleared, untouched. "Eliza," he said, a word. We stood by the massive stone fireplace as the staff silently cleared the room. He reached into his vest pocket. He did not hand me a check or a portfolio. He handed me a single, heavy, old-fashioned brass key. "This," he said, "opens the family safe in the library. It has been locked since your grandmother passed away, 20 years ago." I thought it would be bonds, gold bars, bearer bonds. Later that night, long after the hollowed-out guests had retreated, I went to the library. The safe was behind a painting. The key turned smoothly. I opened the heavy steel door. It was empty, except for a single, thick, leather-bound portfolio. My name was embossed on the cover. I opened it. It was not a stock portfolio. It was a plan, a meticulously detailed, 20-year-old plan for a community foundation, a blueprint to build schools in underserved counties, a proposal to fund libraries, a complex, brilliant strategy for creating digital safety programs for at-risk youth. My grandmother's sharp, intelligent handwriting was in the margins. I understood. Arthur hadn't been waiting for an heir to his money. He had been waiting for a partner. He had been waiting for someone who understood risk, not just to avoid it, but to manage it. He was waiting for someone who knew how to build. I stood in the silent library, the portfolio in my hands. I would not use my life, or this new, immense power, to repay what was done to me. I would not be defined by their attack. I made a new principle, a new rule that I would carve into my life. I will not seek revenge with a scream. I will end the conflict with the absolute, unyielding power of the law. And then, I will use the rest of my life to open doors for those who need to be protected. The fight was over. The real work was just beginning. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it some extra love by hitting that hype button so more people can hear it.